Good morning. Want to catch up on everything that matters today in just a few minutes? From new questions about Meta's stablecoin plans to global leaders rethinking unity at the G7, we've got you covered. And stay with us until the end, because the day's biggest headline is the escalating showdown between California's governor and President Trump, a political clash that could shape the national debate. Let's get started. In our first story, let's turn to Capitol Hill, where Meta's stablecoin ambitions are under new scrutiny. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal have sent a letter to Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, pressing for answers about its plans regarding stablecoins. The lawmakers want Meta to clarify whether it has lobbied for the Genius Act, a key Senate bill on stablecoins, or if it intends to launch or partner with a stablecoin issuer. Their letter comes just as the Senate prepares to vote on the Genius Act. The senators highlighted past concerns about Meta's handling of scams, privacy issues, and alleged anti-competitive behavior. They also referenced reports that Meta is considering integrating stablecoins into its payment systems. Warren and Blumenthal warned that if Meta were to control its own stablecoin, it could gain access to vast amounts of consumer data, potentially fueling more targeted advertising and increasing the risk of sensitive information being sold to third parties. The letter asked Meta to detail how any new stablecoin project would differ from its earlier attempt, Libra, later renamed Diem, which faced strong bipartisan and international opposition before being abandoned in 2019. Meta was also asked whether it would oppose an amendment that would block big tech companies from owning or affiliating with stablecoin issuers. As of now, Meta has not responded publicly to the letter. The Senate is expected to vote on the Genius Act soon, with most observers predicting it will pass without amendments. Senator Ruben Gallego said last week he expects significant Democratic support for the bill, alongside a majority of Republicans. Now let's turn to international affairs, where leaders from the Group of Seven are preparing for next week's summit in Canada. According to sources familiar with the matter, G7 nations will not attempt to agree on a joint communique at this year's meeting. Instead, leaders are expected to issue separate statements on specific topics like Ukraine, climate change, and trade. This shift reflects ongoing disagreements between the United States and other member countries on key global issues. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is hosting the summit, hopes this approach will help reduce tensions with President Trump and keep discussions on track. Traditionally, G7 summits end with a single communique that signals unity among the world's leading economies. Last year's document was 36 pages long and included commitments to support Ukraine, address climate change, and promote gender equality. However, President Trump has taken different positions on many of these topics, often clashing with other G7 members. He has declined to back Ukraine against Russia, rolled back climate initiatives, and dismissed gender policies as part of what he calls a woke agenda. Carney wants to avoid a repeat of 2018, when Trump withdrew his support for the final communique after a dispute with then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. To make negotiations easier, recent G7 meetings have produced shorter documents with fewer controversial points. This year, leaders will also discuss artificial intelligence, energy security, wildfires, and ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and leaders from India, Brazil, and Mexico are set to join the talks. Observers say the U.S. administration now prefers no deal over one filled with disagreements, aiming to return the G7 to its core focus on economic stability and growth. Now let's move to U.S. trade policy, where President Donald Trump is once again signaling new tariff actions. President Trump said he plans to send letters to America's trading partners within the next 1 to 2 weeks, setting out new unilateral tariff rates. This comes ahead of a July 9th deadline to potentially reimpose higher duties on dozens of countries. Speaking in Washington, Trump told reporters, "We're going to be sending letters out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks to countries, telling them what the deal is. At a certain point, we're just going to send letters out. You can take it or leave it." It's unclear if Trump will follow through on this timeline. He has previously set similar deadlines for tariff actions, which have sometimes been delayed or not enforced. In April, Trump announced higher tariffs, but paused them for 90 days after concerns about market reactions and a possible global downturn. So far, the only formal trade agreement reached by the U.S. is with the United Kingdom, along with a temporary truce with China. However, recent tensions between Washington and Beijing have threatened even that truce, leading to extended negotiations in London earlier this week. Trump also said the framework with China is complete, including provisions for China to supply rare earths and magnets, while the U.S. would allow Chinese students to study at American universities. Asked if he might extend the deadline for other nations to reach deals before higher tariffs take effect, Trump said he would consider it, but added, "I don't think we're going to have that necessity." The administration is focusing on bilateral agreements with key partners like India, Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick noted that talks with the EU may take longer given the complexity of negotiating with a 27-nation bloc. Now let's turn to California, where Governor Gavin Newsom is at the center of a heated clash with President Donald Trump. In a televised address Tuesday night, Newsom accused Trump of blatant abuse of power, criticizing federal immigration enforcement for spreading fear in immigrant communities. He warned, "Democracy is under attack before our eyes," adding that California may be the first target, but likely won't be the last. This confrontation highlights the ongoing tension between the Democratic governor and the Republican president. For Newsom, it's both a challenge and an opportunity as his term ends next year and speculation grows about his national ambitions. Trump responded by calling Newsom grossly incompetent and blaming him for not controlling violent protests in Los Angeles. The president even revived an old insult, referring to the governor as Newscum, and suggested arresting Newsom would be a great thing. Reports say the White House is considering cutting billions in federal aid to California, including education funding. Newsom dismissed these threats as steps toward authoritarianism, arguing that sending federal forces only escalated tensions. "The rule of law is giving way to the rule of dawn," he said. Recently, Newsom has become a prominent voice for Democrats nationwide, often struggling to present a unified alternative to Trump. His speech drew wide media coverage and over 1 million online views. On social media, his team compared Trump to Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, and Newsom's TikTok following has nearly doubled. While risks remain, like losing federal funds or facing arrest, this battle could raise Newsom's national profile. As political divisions deepen, both leaders appear ready for a prolonged fight, each using the rivalry to energize their supporters. Before you go, tell us, what's your take on today's news? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it helpful. You're watching Finance Daily Reports, your source for global finance and politics. See you soon and have a nice day.